everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Hugh Capital Podcast, where we discuss all things career and business with professionals, founders, and community leaders. So today, I am super enthused to be joined by one of the best people that I have ever worked with. This amazing woman's name is Danissa Rodriguez, and she is what I would consider to be one of the brightest computer scientists out there. Not only is she a genius, but she also has a personality bright enough to light up any room that she enters. And I love that for her. Now, I do want to remind you all that there is nothing easy about becoming a computer scientist, especially while serving as a postdoctorate fellow. But our amazing Venezuelan mommy is here to tell you all about it. So without further ado, Danissa, welcome again. Tell them everything they need to know about who you are, but not everything.
So thank you so much for the introduction, Julissa.
Of course.
That was great.
I can talk about her all day, by the way.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I'll tell you all about my journey. I was born in Venezuela, as Julissa mentioned before. I got a bachelor's degree in computer science first, and then I always knew that I wanted to go to grad school, and I got really good, a GPA really high. I was the best of my whole year. I graduated in 2010, and I was the best of my whole promotion.
Talk about it.
Yeah, and then the day I graduated, I got an offer to work in the university where I graduated, and I didn't want to be a professor, but I thought it was a great opportunity for my career, so I took it. But I always had that in my mind that I wanted to go for grad school. Mom and dad are engineers, and they were putting that in our head all the time. They were like, you guys have to go to school. You got to do great. You got to go to like grad school or do something great with your career. So when I graduated, I started working as a professor for 4 years. It was weird. I was the youngest. I graduated when I was 20, by the way. I was the youngest of my whole career. And then I was the youngest professor in the whole university. It was tough. It was a challenge.
So I have a quick question, Danissa. How did you get there? Like, how did you end up being someone so young with such a profile?
Well, it was a funny story because I have an older brother, and he's only a year older than me. And then whenever he started going to school, I would just cry the whole day until he comes back home. Like the whole day, I would cry for hours. So my parents decided that it was time for me to go to school because I couldn't stay home just crying the whole day. I couldn't, we were really close. And as soon as he left, I would cry until I see him coming back home. So they put me in school, and then I was in the same school, and I could see my brother all the time because he was in a classroom in front of me. So that's how I started going to school super early. So I started when I was about 3 or 4. And then they realized that I was learning fast because my brother was kind of helping me in the process. My mom used to help my brother, and I was there listening whenever he was reading and counting. So I was learning really fast. And they just put me in a higher grade faster.
Wow.
So I graduated from high school when I was 15 or 16. Then I got into college around 16, and I wanted to graduate super fast for some reason. I just wanted to graduate.
You were to be done. You were just ready to be done and working. I get it.
Yeah, and then I started taking extra credits every single semester, and taking summer classes.
When did you breathe?
Did
you ever breathe?
I didn't have time. I used to go out all the time. I love partying.
Those classes, girl, shout outs to you.
I used to go out. I remember I used to go out, and if I had a test at 7 a.m. or something, I would go out, study before, go out, get home, shower, and go to school, and still was getting an A.
I don't have that story. I was more so staying up all night and just taking the test right after that, and probably still not getting the grade that I wanted. But it's not about me.
But yeah, so I was taking extra credits all the time. So I graduated in 4 years, and it was a 5 years career. I got a bachelor's in science and computer science. So I graduated, and I was the best for my whole class. I got a perfect GPA, and then I got the offer letter to be a professor. Again, I was the youngest, and it was weird, and very weird because I was even younger than the people I was teaching, even younger than my students. Yeah, because I was teaching in a very high semester, and I was just 20, 21 when I started.
Oh,
Yeah, so I did that for 4 years, and then, but I always knew that I wanted to go to grad school. It was always on my head. I wanted
How
to
did you get there?
I think it was something I got from my parents. I believe it was something I got from my parents because they talk about it all the time and they wanted to do it, but they didn't do it. They graduated as an engineer, both of them, and then they didn't go to grad school. But it was always like they always wanted that for them, and I feel like I heard them talk about it a lot, but it was just in my head. I always
So they
wanted.
didn't force it on you, but because it was so discussed, it was just like, yeah, I embraced it. I'm gonna take this route.
Yeah, I don't.
For both parties.
To be honest, I don't even know. It was just something like a desire inside me. I knew it. I wanted to go to grad school. Like I don't
know that.
Yeah, I blame my parents for that.
I do want to revert back really quickly, right? Because even though you did go and get your bachelor's in computer science, for a lot of people, they're not necessarily aware of like what a computer scientist is and what they do. So what did you know in high school that made you make the decision to actually do that in undergrad?
This is a funny story. So I didn't want to be a computer scientist at all. I didn't have idea what it was or anything. I have zero knowledge about it. But I wanted to be a medical doctor. I wanted to go into healthcare. I wanted to be a medical doctor. So my older sister, who is a doctor, who is a medical doctor, she took me to the hospital when I was 15. I just graduated from high school and she took me to the hospital because she is 10 years older than me and she was already working as a doctor. And I saw this girl who came with like the leg broken like 3 or 4 pieces and I passed out. I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. That was the day I decided I couldn't go to med school.
So, at least you faced that reality sooner than later, right?
Yes. So I decided I wasn't going to go to med school because I couldn't do it. Physically, I couldn't do it. And then my parents are engineers and they talk about computer science. And, it was a really good field. And I remember checking all the possible job marker and everything. And I saw it had a really good application, especially in a country where the main industry is petroleum. So you either go for petroleum and then you work in a very isolated area. Is not what I like. Even though my parents are petroleum engineers, they never want that for us because you have to work in very isolated areas. It's not a good life. So like in a country where the main industry is petroleum, if you want to work in a nice place and have like a different lifestyle, I thought computer science could have a big application. So that's how I ended up in computer science.
But what exactly is computer science? Like, what is that?
The way it was back home in Venezuela, and I think that the curriculum is really similar here, is that we learn a lot. We learn about software and hardware, and then we learn about networks and connections and electricity and circuits. We have like a lot of knowledge about a computer in general and systems in general.
Nice.
So you go from the basic learning about programming languages and developing a system, but you also know about hardware. You also know about the process for developing a software. You also have some classes on network security, or it's a very complete pensum, like curriculum, and then you decide what is your main area.
Nice.
So at that point, I like telecommunications and networks, and that's what I did my undergrad thesis, or like my project on. Again, it was influenced by the situation in the country. We're not very advanced on technologies and everything, so it was more like a social work, and I thought it was good for me to have a project on providing connectivity to people in a rural area. So it was really influenced by the situation that I was living at that time.
Nice. So I do want to get into your transition to the US in like 2 seconds, but I do remember that when I was first learning about like computer science, not because I took a class or anything like that, but because I know so many people who are engineers, there was always this conversation, to your point, about software versus hardware. Now, for people who are pursuing a goal in this industry, can you differentiate the difference between someone who is a software engineer versus maybe a hardware engineer?
Yes. So I feel the way it was in my curriculum, it was kind of like both, but more on software.
Okay.
Then there was another career, which is you can go either for electrical engineering or computer engineering. That is more about hardware.
Okay.
So for us, it was more like software and understanding the whole process of developing a software, like more like software engineers,
Okay.
hardware or computer engineers. It was a clear division over there. So that's what I liked the most. And I remember I took some classes about electrical things, and we have a very similar curriculum with electrical engineering. And I took some classes in that department, but it was not what I liked. I
Got
liked more software. So that's what I went for computer science. I
Nice.
feel like it's more like it's also a more scientific than engineering per se.
All right, awesome. Now, Fulbright scholar, that's a big deal. Please tell us about how you became a Fulbright scholar and what exactly that even is.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, I was working as a professor, but I was always thinking about grad school. And the reality was that I didn't have the money to afford grad school here in the US. The situation back home was getting worse, and the economy wasn't really good. We were not doing very well as a country and as a community. So I remember that, thinking the only thing that I have to leave this country is my brain, that I'm gonna use my brain and my grades, and that's gonna take me out of the country. That's because I didn't have the money. So I thought about my grades, and I'm gonna use that. So I was like, I'm gonna use this. And I spent hours and days and months searching for this scholarship. So before, I wanted to go to France because there was an opportunity to go there and get a master's, but I applied 3 years on the road and I did not get it. So I was already super sad when I saw Fulbright. And then it was a very, very competitive scholarship. Like not many people got it. And I just found it online. It was like, God, just show it to me. And I applied, like after 3 years of not being selected, I was like, well, maybe this year is going to be my chance to live. And then I applied, I filled all my forms. And then 3 months after, I got the call. They wanted to have an interview with me, and I was jumping in my whole house. I was like, oh my God.
Probably thinking, me? You want me? Oh my goodness.
I was like, oh my God. And then I had to go I'm not from the capital city. I'm from an island. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. I'm from an island called Margarita Island. It's a tiny island, which is part of the country. And then I had to fly to the capital city to give my interview. So I remember my mom said, okay, I'm gonna go with you. So we get a plane, we went to the capital city, and then when I went there were 2 people that were gonna have the interview. They're like two other candidates. And I went there and I was like not very confident. I was super scared. It was in English. My English was not really that good. It was not good. And like it was just, I was just scared. I didn't know I was gonna get it. I was like, like me, like really me.
But yes, they chose you, and honestly, you're one of the most deserving people for it. And if you didn't get it, I wouldn't have met you. So after you got that scholarship, where did it bring you next before you actually ended up at NYU?
So I got the scholarship. I went to the interview and then I was selected. I got like 3 months after that interview, I got an email and said I was selected. They were going to pay for all my studies. They were going to pay for my education, my English classes, my GRE and TOEFL, everything that you have to take to come to the US. They were going to select school, everything. I didn't have to do anything, just get in the plane. I was super happy. I was super excited. And then I found out that I was the only person from my island that ever got this scholarship. I was the first one from the whole island, for the whole state, that ever got this scholarship. And it was a big award, and I was so proud of myself because like the whole committee flew to my island to give a speech in the university where I was working, just to congratulate me for like being the only person that ever applied or got it from the island.
So that's huge.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that was happening to me. It was
I know your parents are like, oh my God, that's my kid. That's my kid. They wanted to cry. They probably did cry. I wouldn't be surprised.
We cried. We celebrated. I couldn't believe it for like I was in shock for like a month. I was like, is it me really? Like I was reading the email, like, does that say my name? Is it my name?
That's so huge.
Yeah. So, of course, the time it was, I got it on 2013 and I was flying on the 14th. So there was a whole year preparation for that. I have to take my exams. I have to, like quit my job and, finish my semester because I was working at that time. And I had to pick the school. So when the time came for me to pick the school, I wanted to go to Penn State or, I wanted to come north.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about LSU because I got my master's and PhD at LSU, Louisiana State University. But they told me that, they were giving me the whole tuition and they were giving me full scholarship. They were like, do you want to take it or you want to wait? And of course I said yes. I was like, no, I don't want to wait anymore. I just want to
start. Let's go.
Just go. And then I never heard about Louisiana State University in my whole life. Never been to Louisiana. Never been to New Orleans or Baton Rouge or anything like that.
Big name school in the U.S., I'll tell you that much, especially for sports.
Yes, for sport. Yeah, now I know so many things. But yeah, at that time, I didn't know anything about Louisiana. So they put me on the plane. I cried. I'd say bye to my family, and I left, and I got here. And I started getting my master's at LSU in computer science. I just went for computer science.
Perfect.
And then I started my master's in 2014. My English wasn't good. Everything was new. I remember my first night over here. I called my parents like, I want to go home. Why did I do
No home. If you went home, I wouldn't have met you. So no, you couldn't have gone home.
I remember them telling me like, just try, I'll wait for 2 weeks. If you feel like it's not for you, then you come back, but just give it a try. And I tried, and I met people, and I make friends, and I started understanding the campus, which is huge, by the way, so big. And started picking up the Southern accent and the language and everything and the classes. So I graduated with my master's successfully in 2016. Woo! By that time I graduated, my advisor at that time, she offered me to get the PhD because she really liked my research. So by the time I was finishing my thesis, my project, she's like, I really like your project and we feel like we can do more research on that. If you like it, maybe I can just pay for your PhD. I can get you as a graduate assistant. And then I thought about it for like 2 seconds and I said, of course, yes.
Why not?
Why not? I want to get a PhD. So then that's how I started my PhD program. And I graduated with my PhD 4 years after in 2020.
Nice.
So fully graduated. Thank God.
Yes.
And I went for, so the computer science program in LSU was very similar to the program that I took back home. And then again, you have different elective. You can go for network, you can go for network security, you can go for visualization and 3D images, you can go for software, you can go for hardware. But the one that I liked was software engineering. So I went for software engineering because that's the main focus of my research and dissertation and all the papers I have.
Nice. And now you're at NYU. Tell them what you do at NYU.
Yeah, so this is another funny story. So by the time I was by the time I was graduating with my PhD, I was like, I'm an international student, so I needed to get a job in order to get my visa status. So I was like looking for a job left and right. I needed to get this job to be able to stay. And as the situation back home was deteriorating, it was a need. I needed to find a job. And I remember the day I applied to NYU. I actually remembered that day. I saw the post, and then I mentioned before I wanted to be a medical doctor. So when I saw the post and it was in healthcare, so we're working in medical school. I work at NYU Langone, the medical school. I was like, this is a great fit. This is a great opportunity because I wanted to be a medical doctor, but I couldn't. But I have a computer science degree, and I can apply my computer science degree to the medical field. Fit for me. And it's amazing, how life, the way life is that I ended up doing and like combining my two passions. Because at this point, I know I said I didn't want to be a computer scientist at the beginning, but this was like 10 years ago. Now I love it. I'm so passionate about my career, and I couldn't pick a better field. I love it.
I do want to attest to that because We do work together. And honestly, Danissa is like the go-to for everything technology for all of our research studies. So she's not lying. Like she loves this and she bodies this. So we
Yeah,
really appreciate
now
you.
I'm passionate about computers.
Yes, and you're killing it.
Deeply.
No, we love you for that, Danissa. And I do want to quickly go back into something, right? So some people are fearful of pursuing a PhD or a master's in computer science because they think there are a lot of challenges. So like, what do you think was the most challenging aspect of being a PhD computer scientist student? And like, how did you like overcome like that?
I feel like the PhD is a resistant career. There is it's a lot of work, and there is a lot of pressure. Sometimes you have so many deadlines. You have deadlines. You have to publish fast. You have to publish, a certain number of papers to be able to graduate. And then as an international student, I have also deadlines for visas and work permits, and I have like so many deadlines. And I think that was the most challenging part for me. Of course, the research is complicated too, because you have to do something new. You have to spend hours in the lab, and then sometimes it just doesn't work. And then you just go and tried and tried and tried. And you need to get this paper. You need to graduate. You have deadlines for the grad school. You have deadlines for your advisor. You have to work as a research or a teaching assistant. I was doing that. So I feel like as a PhD, you have so many things going on at the same time as a PhD student. And then you just have to do it. You just have to be strong. So I guess the reason that kept me going, I would say, was my family and my desire to actually achieve this. It was a personal goal. Like you have no idea how happy I was when I got the diploma.
I actually do want to second that, because I think that a lot of times people ask us like, what's our motivation? And to your point, we will say our family, our mom, our dad, our sister, or whoever. But there is also a glory in knowing that you told yourself that you wanted to accomplish something and you actually did it. Now, to get there, was it easy? Was it like very satisfying the whole entire time? Probably not. But the reality is you told yourself that you'll accomplish something and you actually did. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
Actually, it's like more, you keep the eyes on the goal. You just focus on the goal, and then you don't care about what's happening. You just want to be there, and then just keep pushing forward until you get it. And you have to be resilient. You have to try harder every time you can. When you feel like you cannot do it anymore, just step back, breathe in, breathe out, and continue. You have to get it done.
And I believe it, because to get a role at NYU's Langone Health System, that's not easy. And Danissa did that. So when she says that you need to be resilient, you need to be resilient. So I do want to make a little shift, right? So getting back into the nature of computer science. So you mentioned that your focus was in telecommunication, networks, and systems. I want you to do me a favor and talk about, why does your work in that specialty, how does it impact like the future of technology? Like, why is that area so important?
Yeah, so before when I was an undergraduate, I went for telecommunications. Now I work in software engineering, and that's the one that I like right now. And I feel it's so important because it's the way it's involved in how we develop and how we create software. So, like softwares and computers are being used everywhere right now. And it was proved by, now we're in this COVID pandemic, and then we're all able to walk and communicate and do things through computers. So, before, the way the software were created before software engineering, it was very like everyone could do it. You know how to program, you do it, but there is a science behind that. So you have to make sure that what you're doing is correct. It could be used for everyone. It could be scalable. You can actually evolve that software. It could be something that you can reuse. There is a lot of science, and not too many people know about this, but there is a lot of science on building a software. It's not only programming. It's like we have to think about so many things. And I feel like the way software engineering is influencing the future of the computer science and computers is with developing quality software. So something that could be used in like 5 or 10 years, something that solve like real problems in society, like some softwares that could be used for so many people and had a real application in the world. So I feel it's a very important topic in the science aspect of developing software, because you are creating something that has standards,
right?
be reused. They could evolve in like in 5 or 10 years. So I feel it has a lot of influence in software. Not because it's my area, but I think it's one of the most
But you
important.
actually believe that it's one of the most
I
important. To be
believe.
honest, I mean, well, I'm not an engineer, but I can obviously attest as a consumer and someone who does study like technology's impact on healthcare, that it's important that, to your point, people are actually more interested in the science behind it, because to your point, it will last longer. People will find it more appealing to actually use. They can find it something that is more sustainable for them to use. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm a consumer of technology. I don't build it. To an extent, I do assist in designing it, not developing it, but I do understand the importance of creating products and, software as a service, as they would say it, products, to ensure that consumers are very satisfied with what they're being presented with. So to your point, you're developing the science that goes into the building and the process of that. And I think that's amazing.
I like to think about it like building an actual building, like you're
Yes.
building a house or something. So,
Right.
I can put a bunch of like briquettes together or like, I can make a wall, but there is people that study to make this wall last longer and look prettier, and like it's not gonna fall with the first hurricane that we had or something like
Right.
that. It's kind of like that. I like to see it like that. We're building product, and then we have all the science to build something that has standards, that is
Yes.
it has quality.
Yes.
And we can put our name on that. So whenever I develop something and I put my name, I know it's a good software.
Yeah, and that's a very popular name, So this Danissa, write that down, y'all. Know she was here first. But you will see her all over everywhere. Yeah. And maybe even in a Netflix documentary one day. Who knows? Oh, that could be a thing. So I do want to explore like the postdoc fellow opportunity. So for people who are watching this, who are computer scientists and are looking for postdoc opportunities, like what's one piece of advice that you would give to those candidates?
I feel like I feel like you have to stand as a PhD to be able to go for a position like this. Like this is a training position for us. So it's a place where you build your resume, you build your career until you get to your faculty position or you get to a more permanent position. So, I feel like to get a postdoc, you have to stand out as a PhD. You have to show the world, what are those things that you can bring into a lab, or those things that you learn that could be useful for somebody else while you're training to get your own lab. That's a transition. So now we're transitioning into a PhD student, a grad student, until you become your professor. You own your own lab, you do your own research. So, I think it's important to show what you can bring to the lab whenever you want to pursue one of these positions. And, to be honest, I heard so many things when I was looking for the postdoc. There are people that don't have like really good experience. They said that it's a long hours on the lab, or it's a continuation of your PhD, but it has not been my experience. Like I think this was the best decision I made to pursue this postdoc, because I don't feel it is a continuation of my PhD. I don't feel like I'm still working under a professor. I feel like I'm developing my career. I'm building my resume for a while until I transition to my own lab, which is what I would want in the future.
Can you hire me? Imagine. No, but I love that answer. Thank you so much for that, Danissa. And we are nearing the end of this interview. But before we do leave, one of the most important things to this podcast is acknowledging the significance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah. And with you being a Venezuelan woman in a field where, one, there is a shortage of underrepresented people, including minorities, as in Latinx, Hispanic, African American, and there is a lack of women also. And we're seeing that there's a cross underrepresentation in your identity, yet you're still in this field. So please talk to me about why is diversity and inclusion important in computer science?
I always say this. In LSU, I was one of the few girls in the program. We were only two. We were only two.
Oh my God. You can't say a few. You have to just say two. A few, I would think 10, 20. Two and a few are not adding up.
Yeah, we were only two in the whole graduate program for computer science when I was doing my master's. And then during my PhD, maybe we hired, like there was another two girls. We were not too many. But I always say this. I feel like computer science, like so many girls are afraid of going into computer science because it's a male field, it's an engineering field. But I believe it's actually a field that needs a lot of detail and like a lot of like a girl's touch somehow. I do believe that because the fact is that when you're programming, you have to be very detail oriented to look for these semicolons that you never see, or to see these tiny names. And I feel that's something like girls we do really good. So I always encourage girls to go into computer science because it's a beautiful field. And I remember I was part of the Women's and Computer Science Association, and I always talk about, we were trying to recruit more girls into the program, and we always say this: don't be afraid. It's actually a great field, and like we have so many of the skills needed to succeed in this area. And then I was working with my advisor for the PhD it was a lady too, and she graduated back on 1970s maybe. I'm sure she was the only women professor, only girl in her program, and she was always asking more girls to join the program. Like she was always talking about this. She's
And that's
like,
going to be
guys, we need more people like you in this program. So we encourage everyone to join, at least on like the women's community. And then we have an association for that. I would say I had a great experience. I never felt like it was a challenge, but I would have not picked a different career because it was a male field or anything. I never thought that was true.
No, thank you so much for that. And that's all the questions that I have for you, Danissa. Before we wrap up, is there any last comments that you have for our audience, or anything that you just want to say to inspire the next generation of computer scientists?
Well, I just have to say that it is a beautiful field. It has a lot of application, and then I feel like it just gives you the flexibility to work from home, to be creative, to manage your own business. So I feel like it's a really great field to be in, especially like right now when the world has transitioned into a digital phase, and we can see the real application of these fields everywhere. So I would say it's a great field to be in. Do not be afraid. It's a great career, and women's we can do it. And then like I'm a real example that you can do it. And then just if you dream about it, if you want to do it, just go for it.
I love that. Oh my goodness, Danissa, thank you so much for being one of the most inspiring women that I have encountered. That's why I had to grab you and get you on this podcast. But for everyone who's listening, I do hope that Danissa was able to effectively give you some insight into what it means to be a computer scientist and how to actually come to a conclusion that you actually want to be a part of this field.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes things sound attractive and appealing. And to Danissa's point, she wasn't completely enthused about it in the beginning, but as she, more and more indulged in it and found her lane in that huge pool of computer science, she does find it rewarding, and you may also experience the same thing. So once again, everybody, this is Danissa. If you want to follow her handles, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., you will find that in the description below. And thank you all so much for listening. See you all for the next episode. Say bye, Danissa.
Thanks.